Liquidators of embattled SA Express deny frustrating its sale. Fly Sachs and the South African Cabin Crew Association are making that accusation. The state-owned airline has been in provisional liquidation for almost 2 years now. Provisional liquidator Aviwe Ndyamara joins us now from Pretoria to share their side of the story. Aviwe, thank you so much for your time this evening. We know you're in some demand. Why has the airline been in provisional liquidation for almost 2 years? It does seem like a very, very long time.
Yes, thank you for having me. I think briefly, let's just capture the media statements that were published yesterday. I mean, the contents of those statements are quite unfortunate, and I think to a very large extent misleading. But I think it's important that we stress, as the joint liquidators, we sympathize, and we always have sympathized with the plight of the employees. Now, the nature of the liquidation of an airline is that there's intangible assets and then there's certainly the material assets. So what's left at this point in time are the material or the intangible asset, which would be your routes or certain licenses, etc., as all the material assets have been disposed of. So certainly the delay is not necessarily because of any other issues other than the fact that the market has not been able to provide us with a successful bidder or a successful sale. Okay, that's really one of the many salient features around that.
Now let's look at Fly Sachs. Is there a specific problem with their approach to this purchase? Now they say they've put down a deposit for SA Express, but you and your colleagues say this is not true. Who do we believe here?
No, look, here are the facts. We elected to run a transparent sales process, and the outcome of that process was that Fly Sachs was the successful bidder. It's fact that Fly Sachs did not meet the requirements in terms of paying the balance of the purchase price. Hence, Fly Sachs was then in breach, and that prospective sale terminated. We then went back to the market, and there's an opportunity now for any other prospective or interested party to submit an offer and follow due process. And due process is as follows. You know, our role and our duty is really to investigate the affairs of the airline and procure or convert material assets into cash in order to pay dividends to the general body of all creditors. And there are processes that need to be followed. So certainly the shareholder needs to consent to any offer that has that we have received, and an offer that we deem would be to the interest of the body of creditors. That's only one part. Then the other part is, of course, the general body of creditors, which exceeds over $1 billion, need to consent to that. And you know, we must be transparent about the ability to give a better dividend. There's debtors that still need to be collected in the liquidation to the tune of no less than 100 million. There's an ongoing inquiry into the affairs of the airline with possible claims against former directors to the tune north of over 800 million. So our role is to, whatever offers we look at, we must take in consideration the interest of the body of creditors. And those creditors would be, of course, small businesses, you know, suppliers, which have also unfortunately have fallen into financial distress. So our functions are to follow due process, and an opportunity has been given to Fly Sachs, and we now await for adjudication of the process. And I think, you know, just like any other bidders, they must await for feedback.
So can you confirm, however, whether or not they have put down a deposit, or is that also part of the process that needs to be vetted and confirmed, or is it that the deposit is not enough?
No, look, I think we're in the adjudication process. I can certainly confirm that they've made an expression of interest, just like other parties have, and they've paid the amount in regard to their expression of interest. Now, they must await that process. We don't have control. We must appreciate one thing about this matter. The shareholder is not your ordinary private company or your ordinary individual that can immediately make a decision or consider it. The shareholder is the state, and we must allow the state its sufficient time to run through its processes in order for them to make a consideration and give an indication to the joint liquidators whether indeed the current offer as is meets their requirement, and on principle are they happy to accept the said offer. Then second to that is that we have to put this offer to the body of creditors, which then would be the ultimate decision maker as to whether or not this offer is acceptable, and whether or not, importantly, the offer is to the benefit of the body of creditors, then of course within an immediate liquidation. Our role is not to determine whether or not a prospective buyer has secured funding beyond the sale. Our role is to administer the affairs within the provisions of the Companies Act, within our powers as provided for by the courts, and that's really our function. And I mean, in doing that, one of the main reasons that there's been many extensions is because we're trying to really get value, and we're still in that process.
Okay, just before I let you go, I'm sure you understand the frustration of those involved with Fly Sachs, because it is made up of former employees of SA Express. So, I mean, they would be the people that say that they've got the best interest of this organisation at heart, because they really want to make it a success. Is there any truth to their accusation that this is all being drawn out on purpose? And should they just give up, or is there a possibility that this might have a positive outcome for them?
Yeah. Firstly, as I emphasized initially, we sympathize with their plight of the employees, but we have to do our job. And really our job is governed by the provisions of the Act. We have done nothing outside of that. And secondly, there is still an opportunity for a sale, but that sale has to go through the process, which process must be sanctioned by shareholders and by the body of creditors. So the allegations around, issues of fees, etc. I want to make this point quite clear. We've been appointed over 2 years now. We haven't banked 1 cent. We are the last. Joint liquidators are the last to get paid. We only get paid at the end of the process. So there's and I wouldn't want to deal with that in this platform. So I think there's a lot of misinformation. Unfortunately, we did a press release that details the factual position. So to go back, certainly there's an opportunity, but the opportunity must run through processes, and we don't administer estates via media reports.
Now, just finally, before I let you go, I mean, I'm a layperson. I'm not one of the business reporters by any means. I'm not an expert on this story like my colleague Heidi Jokos is. Is there a possibility that government can still make a buck out of this? Is there a profit to be made if you get the right purchaser on board?
Let me answer you this way. The creditors exceed over R1 billion. The debtors, in terms of an asset base, looking at about over R100 million. We've collected less than 5%. Then we've sold the material assets to the tune of at least about 27 million. So in the liquidation scenario, certainly concurrent creditors, we don't foresee any dividend accruing to them, but we're not in a position to comment what happens post the transaction. So I think maybe that gives you a bit of perspective.
Okay, we're going to leave you there. Thank you so much, SA Express's provisional liquidator, Aviwe Ndyamara. Thank you so much for your openness with that interview tonight.